With over 16 seasons plus All-Stars and nearly a dozen international franchises, Drag Race has done quite a few challenges. There are the ones that we see year after year, like the girl groups, the ball, and the snatch game, and then there are some unique challenges that are sprinkled in. Sometimes these challenges are meh, but other times they strike gold. Today, we'll be counting down the top 9 challenges that Drag Race needs to bring back. For today, I'll be focusing on the challenges that the US series did only once. I won't be focusing on whether international seasons did the same challenge, but if an international franchise did it better, I might sprinkle that in. And if, like my other videos, I'm stupid and forget another challenge that they did more than once, let me know and correct me in the comments. I'll do my best, but I think I captured all the challenges they only did once that they need to do again. Before we begin on today's list, I want to just talk about 2 things that I think would be amazing challenges that they could bring back, but I know they're not going to just because of the state of the world and of Drag Race at this point. The first one is from All Stars 1, it's Queens Behaving Badly, where the queens had to walk out onto Hollywood Boulevard and entice strangers to do strange things with them by having their teammates speak to them through an earpiece. The queens then got points because of what the strangers were able to do. I know people think that this is a weird challenge, but I think it's kind of a lot of fun because it allows for the queens to interact with regular people. And for drag queens and just people on the street, that's always a good mix. They probably won't bring this back, number 1, because they don't want to expose who is going to be on the show, and number 2, with the state of the world, drag queens are unfortunately targeted, and I don't want to get into that. It's an unfortunate world that we live in at this point, and this challenge would have been a lot more fun if we could keep doing it. The other challenge that I think would be a lot of fun to bring back, even though I know they're not going to, is from the grand finale of All Stars 1. It's the live public appearance at Hamburger Mary's. For being a terrible season, All Stars 1 had some pretty fun challenges. I think any element where the queens can go out and do what they would do on their normal days, where they're hosting events or they're going to events or interacting with a live crowd in an environment that's not the workroom, would show us really how talented these queens are. These queens that are great at drag, but maybe not great at Drag Race. I know we won't get this again because they don't want to expose who's on the season. They don't want spoilers getting out, even though they get out every season anyway. I think this would be a great way to allow for queens to flex their talents hosting and flex their talents as just drag queens. I'd love to see it again. I know we're not going to, but let's dive into the real list. The tale of Merle Ginsburg was an interesting saga. She appeared as a judge on the first 2 seasons before being replaced by Michelle Visage during season 3, and then never really mentioned again. If you were watching at the time, it was a common question, what happened to Merle Ginsburg? That was until season 7, when we got the Whatever Happened to Merle Ginsburg challenge. That's what I have at number 9, the Rue Hollywood Stories challenge. Here we saw the final 9 queens break into 3 groups, each responsible for telling one side of the story of Merle's exit. One group took Merle's, one took Michelle's, and one took Rue's. This led to some hilarious acting, and it was a great service to the fans who had been asking the question for 7 years. Since then, Drag Race has done 9 more seasons. There's plenty of other opportunities to do similar acting challenges with a concept from Drag Race lore. Whatever happened to Santino Rice? No. Okay, actually, never mind on that one. But with a show that's as self-referential as Drag Race, this is a perfect opportunity to bring it back and tell a story that hasn't been told. Well, it wouldn't be a Wild Spear video if I didn't immediately break my rules after I set them in the start of the video, but here we are. For number 8, I have the Color Design Challenge from All Star 7. On the surface, this one's pretty simple. On All Star 7, each of the queens select a color, and then they have to create a look using the material that only uses that color. This led to some iconic looks from Jada, Trinity, and Raja, and allowed the designers to truly be designers. The part where I'm breaking my rules with this challenge is I'm incorporating the UK Series 2 challenge of Who Wore It Best. To start off, in this challenge, the queens were each given a color to create a look, but this time they were paired with another queen who was creating a look out of the same materials. This added an element of competition, especially since queens were paired with their best friend in the competition. So, to sum up, in this case, in this story, we would have all the queens break up into pairs and each be given a color to design a look. And then they would be judged next to each other who was the best. If they were the best, they were safe. If they weren't, they were in the bottom. The design challenge has been done a dozen times, and a change like this might change the format and make it a little bit more fun and interesting. Even though I do love design challenges, they can always stand to do something different. This one probably could have been saved for another video where I talk about challenges from the UK or Canada or another franchise that the US should take on, so stay tuned for that. But here's your taste of number 8. Think about the queer community, and especially gay men. We discover a pop star or an actress, and we make it our entire personality. That's why Season 11's Diva Worship Challenge is one of the challenges that they need to bring back ASAP. We had the amazing Britney Spears team.
Yo, thank you, Miss Fancy. I thank myself. And you too, Britney.
And the amazing train wreck of Team Mariah.
It's me, my baby. Her singles top the chart.
The Diva Worship Challenge was inspired by those late night infomercials that air trying to convert us to whatever brand of Christianity they're advertising at this point. This challenge had the queens break into 2 groups, and they needed to create a live infomercial which featured 2 hosts, a live conversation, and a musical number. It's an improv challenge, but it has boundaries and barriers. Queens break into different parts and they know what they need to do. It's their job to improv that certain part of the challenge. I think that's the challenge that we're having with improv challenges lately, is that there are not enough rules. I get improv is supposed to be no rules, people can do whatever they want, but if you're not an actress, if you're not an improv, a challenge like Diva Worship, where there's certain rules and certain roles that the queens need to follow and fill, then you're going to have a more successful challenge, especially for those non-actress, non-improv queens. And that's what we saw here. We need the Diva Worship Challenge because it's a universal phenomenon, and I can't wait for somebody to cover Janet Jackson, my favorite. She deserves the Diva Worship. We've done dozens of design challenges over the years, and for the most part, they involve using a similar material or a found material. It's not very often that we deviate from this sort of common theme. That was, though, in Season 15, we did something different with the House of Fashion Design Challenge, and that's what I have at number 6. The top 14 queens broke into 3 groups who had to create outfits inspired by one of the 3 Drag Race judges, Michelle Visage, Carson Kressley, and Ross Matthews. The queens did a pretty good job, but I don't know if it was intentional that the looks were supposed to look like they came from the same house, or they were just supposed to come from the same sort of area that they destroyed to get the materials to create their looks. The looks in the House of Matthews didn't always flow together, and I would argue the only house that really had a consistent theme was the House of Visage, with sort of the animal print. The other 2 houses were kind of just great looks that the queens created, but didn't really flow together as a house. The idea of a fashion house has been in the world of ballroom since the very beginning, and it's surprising that we haven't done that more often on Drag Race, creating kind of a house of design looks. I would argue that this was done even better on Canada Season 1, when the final 9 queens broke into 3 groups, and they each had a different material to create their looks. While the material options of paper, plastic, and metal wasn't an amazing thing to create looks out of, the concept was much better because it forced the queens to create a true fashion house with similar looks that complemented each other. This was then judged in teams, with the winning queen having the best look from the winning house. I think this is something that we saw on Season 14, but it could be improved if they did it again and had different materials and different rules for the challenge. And here I am mentioning that I want all these rules. I guess I just want Drag Race to be exactly how I want it to be. But I think this was a great challenge, and I would love to see it again. We've made it to number 5, and number 5 on this list is another improv challenge, but it's an improv challenge with rules. That's The Bachelor from All Stars 3. The Bachelor featured queens appearing on a show similar to The Bachelor, where they had to try to win the heart of Jeffrey Boyer-Chapman. They were each given a scene where they had to interact with either Jeffrey or the other queens on the stage and try to win his heart and be as crazy as possible. We saw Ben de la Creme and Kennedy do amazing, and so did a lot of the other queens on the cast. The Bachelor was a lot of fun because it played on something that everyone is familiar with, just the Bachelor dating show. It allowed for the queens to create these characters and act out how they would want to in the bounds of this Bachelor show. I think the thing that could have even made it more fun is, what if we got all the queens together on stage to try to woo Jeffrey Boyer-Chapman together? I know that probably would have made it crazy and a disaster, but The Bachelor is kind of a beautiful disaster. I mean, I don't even watch it, but every time that I've seen an episode, it's some sort of a mess. And that's what The Bachelor was. It was a fun mess that allowed for the queens to really be whoever they wanted to be. And we need more of those challenges on Drag Race. I always think it's fun for the queens to take playful jabs at each other. We see them do it every year during the reading challenge, well, except for season 12. And with the gays being gays, we also love award shows. We love the red carpet, we love the unfiltered moments, we love the whole idea of winning. That's why so many of us have Oscar parties every year. And I'm no different, which is why I have the DESPY Awards Challenge at number 4 on the list. The DESPY Awards were a parody of the ESPY Awards, a sports award show, and it featured queens coming out in pairs to award the fellow queens with awards like Most Busted Drag Queen, Sexy Drag Queen, and Meatiest Tuck. To determine who would win these particular categories, the queens all voted, and then their results were awarded live on stage. They've done similar mini challenges where the queens have had to vote for their fellow competitors for other shady categories, but this challenge had an element of improv that allowed the queens to shade the other queens live on stage. This challenge also judged the queens on what they chose to wear to the award show. I think this could have even been expanded to include a longer red carpet section where the queens were asked questions before or after they had won their awards. And I think even bringing back former queens on the season would be a fun way to make the red carpet reporters a part of the show. The DESPY Awards were a perfect mix of improv plus acting plus performance, and we need to see it again. The number 3 challenge that I'm going to have on my list is another improv challenge, but it's an improv challenge with rules. And that's the Dragra Kadabra Magic Challenge from season 11. Nowadays, this challenge is mostly remembered because it was the assassination of Sugar Cane, but when you look at the challenge, it's actually pretty exciting. The queens were split into 2 groups who needed to put on a magic act to learn the tricks from a real magician. This is a great challenge to allow the queens that are talented at hosting gigs to really flex their talents. And the element of magic makes it interesting for the audience and provides a driving story for the queens to create the improv. If you go out to local drag gigs, one of the most important skills that queens need to have is the ability to host an event. Without a good host, an event can quickly get disorganized. We've seen some things like that happen on Drag Race itself. The magic show is a great opportunity for queens talented in hosting to showcase that skill. The magic show adds an element of improv and an element of performance and is an all-around good time. And as somebody who loves to just watch magic, and it's an interesting thing for me to learn about and learn behind the curtain what's going on, the magic that the queens performed was actually pretty impressive, given none of them were magicians to start with. This time though, let's not make a queen eat a balloon, which is what they made A'keria do that season. That was her magic. She ate the balloon. But maybe that's why they call her Miss Ass Almighty, because it's part balloon. I've mentioned a lot of improv challenges here, but another fun challenge that the queens can do is when they can create their own acting challenges. When queens get to create what they want to say and create their own characters, the results are almost always better than the acting challenges that we actually end up seeing. This was especially true for Season 14's Super Tease Challenge, which is number 2 on my list. The episode was aimed at giving fans an idea of what Season 14 was all about and allowing for the queens to create a character of a contestant on the season. This is where creative and comedy queens like Maddie Morphosis and Willow Pill really did amazing. And even if they didn't get the flowers that they deserve, they created an awesome product at the end of the day. Can you imagine if this super tease that they created were actually the teasers that they put out at the start of the season? That would be crazy, because then when these queens come in, people will be waiting for these crazy Untucked moments to happen. And unless we're going to start getting better Untucked, we need an element like the super tease to give us the drama, give us the shade, and give us a fun experience. If you haven't watched this since the episode aired, it's on YouTube. Check it out now, because it's really fun to see these queens that we saw go through the entire season and the characters that they chose to play. Some of them are eerily similar to the people that they actually are, and some of them are just off the wall and crazy, just like Deja Skye. I would love to see the Super Tease come back because it's an amazing challenge and it allows for the queens to really pull on their creativity in a safe, fun acting environment, especially early on within the season. The other fun thing about the Super Tease is when the judges get involved kind of in something that the queens had created. We saw RuPaul making jokes on the main stage with the contestants, and I couldn't tell if these questions or these jokes were made by the queens themselves or if they were made by production and added to the Super Tease, but it was clear that Ru was playing a part in this challenge in addition to the queens, which is a lot of fun for somebody that is the host of the show to get involved. We've reached number 1, and if I mentioned the name of this challenge, you probably wouldn't know what I'm talking about. The number 1 challenge that they should do again is the Lip Sync Eleganza Extravaganza. You're probably thinking about this Lip Sync Lollapalooza, but in reality, I'm talking about the Season 5 challenge where the queens had to lip sync great Untucked moments from prior seasons. We really need some new terminology here in Drag Race. For a show that is as self-referential as Drag Race, I keep mentioning it, doing a challenge like this is perfect. And although we haven't had as many amazing Untucked moments over the most recent seasons, that doesn't mean that we couldn't pull 4 from the previous 12 seasons that have aired since this appeared in Season 5. We've got Candy and Tamisha, we've got Jasmine and Maddie. There's a lot of great moments that have taken place that we could turn into amazing Untucked moments when you really drag up these events. That's the whole damn episode there. This challenge is a win-win for both fans and producers because the challenge makes the queens channel their acting skills while referencing some of the most iconic moments of Drag Race history. For producers, it pushes fans to check out the older seasons to see what these Untucked moments are all about. A challenge like this might actually, and this is me getting on my soapbox, might help reinvigorate Untucked, which has been dying ever since the producers thought we wanted to spend 10 minutes watching the queens talk to Icona Pop. If you leave moments for the queens to be crazy and do fun things in Untucked, and not spend time talking to celebrities, maybe we might get a better Untucked show. And there we have it. Those are my 9 challenges that they need to bring back on Drag Race. What do you think? Is there anything that I missed? Is there anything that I shouldn't have included? Did they do any of these challenges ever again? I don't think so, but let me know in the comments and stay tuned for more fun stuff here on Wild Spear.